A Fox News alert. History made overnight as President Trump welcomes home 3 newly freed American hostages from North Korea. Here now to react is Fox News foreign policy analyst Kiron Skinner. Kiron, thank you so much for being here on such an historic morning. Right now, those 3 detainees are at Walter Reed Medical Center getting medical treatment. In all likelihood, at some point soon, if it hasn't happened already, they will be debriefed. What do we expect to learn?
They're important assets. First, let me say this is, as you'll hear throughout the day, an historic moment for the United States and for the world, for the families of those that were held, those 3 Americans, and for them as well. So, with that said, they're incredible human intelligence assets for the United States as the White House prepares for the summit with Kim Jong-un. And what I mean by that is that we don't have the quantity and quality of on-the-ground intelligence in North Korea that we have in other nations due to the fact that North Korea is a deeply isolated country over many decades. And because it's been walled off from the rest of the world, there's a lot that we don't know. What these 3 former hostages can tell us is their impression of the state of the political culture in North Korea, what North Koreans are saying, the citizens, what they think about their government, how the government interacts in very subtle ways that we can't perceive. Right. That will be incredibly valuable information as the Trump administration crafts its strategies going into the disarmament talks.
You mentioned that this could be President Trump's Reagan moment. What do you mean by that?
You know, people forget that the final decade of the Cold War was an incredibly tense period where there were concerns that nuclear war might happen. The U.S. placed intermediate nuclear forces in Europe at the end of 1983. But earlier in that year, the United States worked closely with the Soviet Union, Reagan and Yuri Andropov, the Soviet General Secretary, to get the release of 2 Soviet Pentecostal families who lived in the basement of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow for almost 5 years. And that was quietly done. It wasn't revealed until 1990, after the Reagan administration. And it prefigured the disarmament talks that came later. Right. Without the human rights intervention, I don't think we would have had an end to the Cold War.
Speaking of other presidents, President Obama negotiated the release of Bo Bergdahl, and we gave up a lot to get Bo Bergdahl back. Obviously, we don't know the particulars of this release and this negotiation, but it doesn't seem like President Trump gave up a lot. It seems like this was a barrier to entry for the talk coming up in June. How do you respond to that?
I think you have it right. I don't have any inside information about the discussions behind the scenes to secure the release, but it does appear that this is something of a precondition for the larger talks that will take place. But it really speaks to, I think, the essence of diplomacy. Diplomacy happens through a series and sequence of moves. And often the political settlement is so central to getting a technology negotiation forward. The disarmament talks are about dismantling the technology problem of nuclear weapons and ICBMs in North Korea. But it's not the real problem with North Korea. It's the fact that it's an isolated dictatorship that oppresses people. Mm-hmm. And that's what Trump is starting with. He's paving the way to have talks on a different matter.
The art of the deal. Kiron Skinner, thanks so much for being here with us this morning.